I'd like to tell you about the strangest secret in the world. Some years ago, the late Nobel Prize-winning Dr. Albert Schweitzer was being interviewed in London, and a reporter asked him, "Doctor, what's wrong with men today?" And the great doctor was silent a moment, and then he said, "Men simply don't think." It's about this that I want to talk with you. We live today in a golden age. This is an era that man has looked forward to, dreamed of, and worked toward for thousands of years. But since it's
To add context, this was written back in or there was a speech by Earl Nightingale. It was like back in I want to say either the 40s or 1950s, long time ago. And it still holds true today, which I think is really telling. So let's get back into it.
here, we pretty well take it for granted. We in America are particularly fortunate to live in the richest land that ever existed on the face of the earth, a land of abundant opportunity for everyone. But you know what happens? Well, let's take 100 men who start even at the age of 25. Do you have any idea what will happen to those men by the time they're 65? These 100 men who all start even at the age of 25 believe they're going to be successful. If you ask any one of these men if he wanted to be a success, he'd tell you he did. And you'd notice that he was eager toward life, that there was a certain sparkle to his eye, an erectness to his carriage, and life seemed like a pretty interesting adventure to him. But by the time they're 65, 1 will be rich. 4 will be financially independent. 5 will still be working. 54 will be broke. Now think a moment. Out of the 100, only 5 make the grade. Now why do so many fail? What has happened to the sparkle that was there when they were 25? What's become of the dreams, the hopes, the plans? And why is there such a large disparity between what these men intended to do and what they actually accomplished? When we say about 5% achieve success, we have...
Think about that. Why is there such a large disparity between what these men intended to do and what they actually accomplished? I feel like time is so fast. Like when I first listened to this or saw this, I was 19 years old. I'm now 26 years old, so that's 7 years. Yeah, crazy. But that being said, I heard this quote that said like truth is timeless. So like truth is timeless, and like we know truth, but like our body feels the truth. So something like this, the reason why it's still relevant today is because it holds true. So let's get back into it.
have to define success, and here's the best definition I've ever been able to find. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. If a man is working toward a predetermined goal and knows where he's going, that man is a success. If he's not doing that, he's a failure. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Rollo May, the distinguished psychiatrist, wrote a wonderful book called Man's Search for Himself. And in this book he says, the opposite of courage in our society is not cowardice. It is conformity. And there you have the trouble today. It's conformity. People acting like everyone else without knowing why, without knowing where they're going. Now think of it. In America right now, there are over 18 million people 65 years of age and older. And most of them are broke. They're dependent on someone else for life's necessities. Now, we learn to read by the time we're 7. We learn to make a living by the time we're 25. Usually by that time, we're not only making a living, we're supporting a family. And yet, by the time we're 65, we haven't learned how to become financially independent in the richest land that has ever been known. Why? We conform. And the trouble is that we're acting like the wrong percentage group, the 95 who don't succeed. Now, why do these people conform? Well, they really don't know. These people believe that their lives are shaped by circumstances, by things that happen to them, by exterior forces.
Let's stay with that conformity fact for a second. I think is interesting because he spoke about how we conform and we act like the bottom percentage, like not the top 5%, but the bottom 90% or 95%. And when you think about conformity and like what that looks like in modern day era, leaders, people who think they are leaders still conform. I think all of us do in some sense of the word, right? And I think it takes just thinking about conformity in many ways. A lot of this stuff, man, it hits home, and it's just a real thing. So when you think about conformity, that could look like if you want to, maybe go out, maybe you feel like you got to take more vacations because you see more people take vacations. Maybe you feel like you got to buy more new clothes. Maybe you feel like you have to, keep up with the appearances. Maybe you feel like you have to experience different things. Maybe it's so many different things, all for the sake of conformity. Where it's like you're not really focusing and doing it because it's something you really want to do, but it's something you feel like you have to do. And not because it's something you feel like you have to do because it's something you really got to do, but just so you can, it's what's expected in this day and age, stuff like that.
They're outer-directed people. A survey was made one time that covered a lot of men, working men, and these men were asked, why do you work? Why do you get up in the morning? 19 out of 20 had no idea. If you ask them, they'll say, well, everyone goes to work in the morning, and that's the reason they do it, because everyone else is doing it. Now let's get back to our definition of success. Who succeeds? The only person who succeeds is the person who is progressively realizing a worthy ideal. He's the person who says, I'm going to become this, and then begins to work toward that goal. I'll tell you who the successful people are. A success is the school teacher who's teaching school because that's what he or she wants to do. The success is the woman who's a wife and mother because she wanted to become a wife and mother and is doing a good job of it. The success is a man who runs the corner gas station because that was his dream. That's what he wanted to do. The success is the successful salesman who wants to become a top-notch salesman and grow and build with his organization. A success is anyone who is doing deliberately a predetermined job because that's what he decided to do deliberately.
I think that's something in this modern day era, that's something that we really got to focus in on. I feel like because there's so many different ideas of success, and with so many people who may look at your life and look at you and feel like what you should be doing and what they feel like what should be a success in your life. Or maybe you're looking at somebody else's life and you're looking at their life and basing your idea of success on their life. I feel like in this day and era, like I said, this is crazy. It was written back in the 1940s. The speech was given back in the 1940s or 1960s, somewhere between 1940s and 1960s. But that being said, his success is anyone who is doing deliberately a predetermined job because that's what he decided to do deliberately. I think that that is important because it's like, put it like this. I spoke about like doing on my own life. I spoke about doing a different job that I was doing. It wasn't something that I wanted to do. It was something I felt like I just, had to do just to get some money coming in. When you're doing something that you deliberately choose to do, like there's somebody else doing that same job and maybe they feel like they deliberately chose to do it and they're feeling successful because it's something that they deliberately wanted to do, right? So it's like you're not unsuccessful because you're a janitor. You're not unsuccessful because you're at the bottom, right? You're unsuccessful when you're doing something that you feel like that you feel like you have to do, and it's not something that you predetermined, like, hey, this is what I'm gonna do next. This is what I'm gonna do. And this is what I'm going to put my mind to, and I'm not going to stop doing it until I get here. And then, of course, you got to, reform your route and, refigure out things that how it's going to come about. But when you put your mind in something and then you start doing it, at that point, you're successful. As soon as you put your mind in something and you start working towards it, at that point, you are successful.
But only 1 out of 20 does that. That's why today there isn't really any competition unless we make it for ourselves. Instead of competing, all we have to do is create. For 20 years, I looked for the key which would determine what would happen to a human being. Was there a key I wanted to know which would make the future a promise that we could foretell to a large extent? Was there a key that would guarantee a person's becoming successful if he only knew about it and knew how to use it? Well, there is such a key, and I've found it. Have you ever wondered why so many men work so hard and honestly without ever achieving anything in particular, and others don't seem to work hard and yet seem to get everything? They seem to have the magic touch. You've heard them say that about someone. Everything he touches turns to gold. And have you ever noticed that a man who becomes successful tends to continue to become successful? And on the other hand, have you noticed how a man who's a failure tends to continue to fail? Well, it's because of goals. Some of us have goals, some don't. People with goals succeed because they know where they're going. It's that simple. Think of a ship leaving a harbor, and think of it with the complete voyage mapped out and planned. The captain and crew know exactly where it's going and how long it'll take. It has a definite goal. Now, 9,999 times out of 10,000, it will get to where it started out to get. Now, let's take another ship, just like the first, only let's not put a crew on it or a captain at the helm. Let's give it no aiming point, no goal, no destination. We just start the engines and let it go. I think you'll agree with me that if it gets out of the harbor at all, it'll either sink or wind up on some deserted beach, a derelict. It can't go anyplace because it has no destination and no guidance, and it's the same with a human being. Now let's get back to the strangest secret in the world, the story that I wanted to tell you today. Why do men with goals succeed in life and men without them fail? Well, let me tell you something which, if you really understand it, will alter your life immediately. If you understand completely what I'm going to tell you from this moment on, your life will never be the same again. You will suddenly find that good luck just seems to be attracted to you. The things you want just seem to fall in line, and from now on you won't have the problems, the worries, the gnawing lump of anxiety that perhaps you've experienced before. Doubt, fear, well, they'll be things of the past. Here's the key to success and the key to failure. We become what we think about. Now let me say that again. We become what we think about. Throughout all history, the great wise men and teachers, philosophers.
So I know some of y'all might be like, man, that ain't nothing. Like I'm saying, that ain't I've heard that before. Like you hear about stuff like this all the time. However, I would urge you to think, like I just talked about earlier. Um, if you hear about it and if you constantly hear about it, then it must be true. And he covers it in a different way. And I think you can tell that everything he's talking about in here is still rings true, 60 to 80 years later, however much time it was. We'll figure it out. But yeah, let's look at how he covers it. Like it's not a simple concept. I think he breaks it down in a it's a simple concept, but I think he breaks it down in a good way.
And prophets have disagreed with one another on many different things. It's only on this one point that they are in complete and unanimous agreement. Listen to what Marcus Aurelius, the great Roman emperor, said. A man's life is what his thoughts make of it. Disraeli said this: everything comes if a man will only wait. I've brought myself by long meditation to the conviction that a human being with a settled purpose must accomplish it, and that nothing can resist a will that will stake even existence for its fulfillment. Ralph Waldo Emerson said this: a man is what he thinks about all day long. William James said, the greatest discovery of my generation is that human beings can alter their lives by altering their attitudes of mind. And he also said, we need only in cold blood act as if the thing in question were real, and it will become infallibly real by growing into such a connection with our life that it will become real. It will become so knit with habit and emotion that our interest in it will be those which characterize belief. And he also said, if you only care enough for a result, you will almost certainly attain it. If you wish to be rich, you will be rich. If you wish to be learned, you will be learned. If you wish to be good, you will be good. Only you must then really wish these things, and wish them exclusively, and not wish at the same time 100 other incompatible things just as strongly. In the Bible, you read in Mark 9:23, if thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believeth. My old friend Dr. Norman Vincent Peale put it this way: this is one of the greatest laws in the universe. Fervently do I wish I had discovered it as a very young man. It dawned upon me much later in life, and I found it to be one of the greatest, if not my greatest discovery outside of my relationship to God. The great law, briefly and simply stated, is that if you think in negative terms, you will get negative results. If you think in positive terms, you will achieve positive results. That is the simple fact, he went on to say, which is at the basis of an astonishing law of prosperity and success. In 3 words, believe and succeed. William Shakespeare put it this way: our doubts are traitors and make us lose the good we oft might win by fearing to attempt. George Bernard Shaw said, people are always blaming their circumstances for what they are. I don't believe in circumstances. The people who get on in this world are the people who get up and look for the circumstances they want, and if they can't find them, make them. Well, it's pretty apparent, isn't it? And every person who discovered this for a while believed that he was the first one to work it out. We become what we think about.
Every person that discovered it believed they were the first one to work it out. That's funny. The way he covered that, we become what we think about. Like I feel like, you hear that, people say, don't worry, don't stress, don't think negatively, be optimistic, think good thoughts. You hear these things, but it's like the importance of it, like why, right? Some people say it's just because like it'll make you feel good, which is true, and that is a reason in and of itself just to think positively, because it'll make you feel good. But the other reason why it's important to think positively is because when you're thinking positively, you're attracting positive events into your life. Whereas if you're sitting back, like you can think about one scenario, like the same exact scenario. If you're thinking about one scenario a negative way, being that things won't work out in your favor, whereas somebody else is thinking like, hey, this is going to work in my favor, who do you think has the edge up, right? It's like something that you can't see. And it's like, that's the reason why it's easy to say, eat good food, right? You will eat oranges, eat cucumbers, eat tomatoes, eat lettuce. You're going to eat those foods because you know and you've read and you believe and you see that these things make you feel better, and you see that you're intaking something that makes you feel better. You don't necessarily see how your thoughts affect you until you see these events that come in your life that produce more of those same negative thoughts. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned throughout my life. And even me just watching this, it's been a little second since I watched this, probably like a year or two. But that's the biggest thing that's early in my life that helped me just grow throughout my life and deal with everything that comes with my business and things that I do on my professional end, and also throughout my real life, is because like I understand that if you feel like all odds are stacked against you, then if you don't have nothing else, the one thing that's going for you, the one thing that you do have working in your favor is your mindset. If you don't let your mindset work towards you, then you're working against yourself. Then why should it work out how you want it to work out? If you're also going to work against yourself, you got everything else that's working against you. You got everything else in the world that's already working against you. Then why sit back and say, man, I don't know if it's going to work out. I don't know. The better idea would be to just stop thinking about it completely. Just try to stop thinking about it. You can't like stop thinking because you have to supplement your thoughts, right? So start thinking about something else. Instead of thinking negatively, start thinking about something else as it pertains to stop thinking about that situation. When you stop thinking about it completely, then you at least release the resistance. When you keep thinking about it and you're thinking about it from a fear point of view, then you're attracting more fear for you to think about ultimately, right? Whereas if you think about it and you're getting excited about it, you're like, man, I can't wait for this to happen. I'm excited. 9 times out of 10, you only move closer to it. Bring it to like a simple example in your own life. If you're going on vacation, you get excited about vacation because you know you're going on a vacation, right? So the closer you get to it, the more excited you get. You start thinking about it, you get excited, you get excited. Now it's an argument that can be made like this vacation is happening because you're excited about it, not because the vacation is happening that you're excited. Think about that, right? Like that's the cause and effect idea. We only see that the vacation is happening because we know that the vacation is happening, but we don't consider that the vacation may be happening because we're thinking positively about it. Because before you booked the trip, before you paid for the hotel, before you bought the tickets, before you did any of that, you were thinking about going on vacation positively, which pushed you closer to your end goal. It's the same thing here. If you got a goal that's in mind and you're thinking about how excited you are to reach that goal, then you're going to get excited and you're going to move closer towards it. It may not be that your goal is already accomplished, but you're going to move closer towards it. Just like when you think about that trip that you're going to go on, you get excited the closer you get to being able to accomplish it. Think about your goals in that same fashion, things that you want to accomplish, things that you want to create. Get excited about it. Get excited that you're moving closer towards it, and don't be upset that it seems so far away. Those are two different things.
Now, it stands to reason that a person who's thinking about a concrete and worthwhile goal is going to reach it, because that's what he's thinking about, and we become what we think about. Conversely, the man who has no goal, who doesn't know he's going, and whose thoughts must therefore be thoughts of confusion and anxiety and fear and worry, becomes what he thinks about. His life becomes one of frustration and fear and anxiety and worry. And if he thinks about nothing, he becomes nothing. Now, how does it work? Why do we become what we think about? Well, I'll tell you how it works as far as we know. Now, to do this, I want to tell you about a situation that parallels the human.
And they like say, if you think about nothing, you become nothing. In reality, guys, think about it. Like throughout your day, you're thinking about something. Even like you tuning in. So, and by the way, thanks for tuning in. Hit the likes up button, thumbs up. Really helps the algorithm, helps us push out to more steppers around the world, right? But that being said, anytime you're doing something, 9 times out of 10, you're thinking. As I'm talking right now, I'm thinking. So it's just like, if you're going to think, then why not think thoughts that feel good? If you have nothing, you feel like you can't control anything else, right? Maybe you're trying to get a new job. Maybe you're trying to get a new contract. Maybe you're trying to get people to zoom into you. Like you can't control anything else that you feel like you can. Maybe you're trying to get more healthy. You want to be healthy tomorrow. You want a 6-pack tomorrow, right? You want all of these things to happen for you. And you feel like, how can it happen? Well, don't be the extra thing against yourself. Work for yourself, because I'm a firm believer, like that's what get the step in me. Keep going. Even when you think you don't know what the next step is, keep going. The universe will meet you halfway. Get the stepping.
Human mind. Suppose a farmer has some land, and it's good fertile land. Now, the land gives the farmer a choice. He may plant in that land whatever he chooses. The land doesn't care. Farmer, human mind. Suppose a farmer has some land, and it's good fertile land. Now, the land gives the farmer a choice. He may plant in that land whatever he chooses. The land doesn't care. It's up to the farmer to make the decision. Now remember, we're comparing the human mind with the land, because the mind, like the land, doesn't care what you plant in it. It will return what you plant, but it doesn't care what you plant. Now let's say that the farmer...
That is like, that's the mind, just like the land. It doesn't care what you plant. You can plant weed, you can plant corn, you can plant, you know what I'm saying? Anything, mushrooms, you can plant tomatoes, anything you want, you can plant in the ground. But the bottom line is, whatever you plant, you're going to get it back. Expect it to come back, right? When you plant crops, you expect that plant to grow. When you're taking care of your plants, when you're watering them, when you're feeding your plants, when you're making sure your plants get sunlight, when you're doing all these things, you're doing it because you expect that your plant will grow. It's the same thing with your mind, whether you recognize that or not, right? I had a plant not too long ago. I ended up over watering it, and then it got molded. And that was like my first plant. And I was like, damn, like maybe I'm not good at taking care of plants, but that's another subject. Anyway, the point being is that Just like in life, when you think about something and you think about something so much, you're spoiling it. When you're thinking about it negatively, when you're oversaturating it, like think about it positively or let it go. When I say let it go, it's like at the point when you feel like you can't think about it positively anymore, then let it go. Think about something else. Replace your thoughts. You can't stop thinking. You're going to think. That's
Farmer has 2 seeds in his hand. One is a seed of corn. The other is nightshade, a deadly poison. He digs 2 little holes in the earth and he plants both seeds, one corn, the other nightshade. He covers up the holes, waters, and takes care of the land, and what will happen? Invariably, the land will return what's planted. As it's written in the Bible, as ye sow, so shall ye reap. Now remember, the land doesn't care. It'll return poison in just as wonderful abundance as it will corn. So up come the 2 plants, one corn, one poison. Now the human mind is far more fertile, far more incredible and mysterious than the land, but it works the same way. It doesn't care what we plant. Success, failure. A concrete, worthwhile goal, or confusion. Misunderstanding, fear, anxiety, and so on. But what we plant, it must return to us. You see, the human mind is the last great unexplored continent on Earth. It contains riches beyond our wildest dreams. It will return anything we want to plant. Now, you might say, well, if that's true, why don't people use their minds more? Well, I think they figured out an answer to that one, too. Our mind comes as standard equipment at birth. It's free, and things that are given to us for nothing we place little value on. Things that we pay money for, we value. The paradox is that exactly the reverse is true. Everything that's really worthwhile in life came to us free. Our minds, our souls, our bodies, our hopes, our dreams, our ambitions, our intelligence, our love of family and children and friends and country, all these priceless possessions are free. But the things that cost us money are actually very cheap and can be replaced at any time. A good man can be completely wiped out and make another fortune. He can do that.
Are you really grasping what he's saying right there? I've been trying not to like keep stopping him, but are you grasping what he's saying right there? Like the best things in life that you really have, they came to you for free. The best things that you really have in life came to you for free. Your arms, your, you know what I'm saying, your mind, your face, your body, your thoughts, all of these things, they come to you for free. And all these free things is what really creates you being able to buy or being able to, you know what I'm saying, invest your time and energy into all these other things. We don't really recognize that the best things in life to us really come for free until we get injured, until something bad happens to our body, until our mental health isn't on point. All these things, then it's like, we recognize that, what you may have not taken full, what you may have not been really thankful for in the beginning is what ultimately matters in the end. When you're at the end on your deathbed, when you're about to die, you're thinking about how to be, ideally, or maybe you're thinking about how to live longer, especially when you die, right? If you're dying, like you're thinking about how to live longer. You're not thinking about, what's coming on Netflix. You're not thinking about what's the next iPhone coming out. Where can you go get some food? Like that's the last thing on your mind. You're thinking about how can you walk. You're thinking about how do you be able to breathe. You're thinking about if you want to be able to see your family. Thinking about what your family's going to be doing in the next 5-10 years while you're not there anymore. Simple stuff like this is when you recognize that how important it is to be able to really control the things that we do get for free. Because we do get them for free means that we can value them the most and we can take the best care of it, right? You can take the best care of your health. You can't take the best care of your car if you feel like you got negative things going on in your mind, right? It's that whole idea that it starts up there. If you're thinking positively, then you're going to think about the things that you can control when you're thinking positively. When you're thinking negatively, then you want to become worried and overcome with the things that you feel like you can't control. And that's the difference.
Several times. Even if our home burns down, we can rebuild it. But the things we got for nothing, we can never replace. The human mind isn't used because we take it for granted. Familiarity breeds contempt. It can do any kind of job we assign to it, but generally speaking, we use it for little jobs instead of big, important ones. Universities have proved that most of us are operating on about 10% or less of our abilities. So decide now, what is it you want? Plant your goal in your mind. It's the most important decision you ever make in your entire life. What is it you want? Do you want to be an outstanding salesman? A better worker at your particular job? Do you want to go places in your company? In your community? Do you want to get rich? All you've got to do is plant that seed in your mind, care for it, work steadily toward your goal, and it will become a reality. It not only will, there's no way that it cannot. You see, that's a law, like the laws of Sir Isaac Newton, the laws of gravity. If you get on top of a building and jump off, you'll always go down. You'll never go up, and it's the same with all the other laws of nature. They always work. They're inflexible. Think about your goal in a relaxed, positive way. Picture yourself in your mind's eye as having already achieved this goal. See yourself doing the things you will be doing.
So I understand, like, a lot of this stuff right here just sounds really cliche. It's like, sit back and just think about you achieving your goal and just sit back and it'll happen and da da da. Nah, it don't work like that. And even in my own life, I'm a positive person, but I get to my stances of being like, damn, why hasn't this happened yet? Why hasn't this happened yet? I'm just blessed enough to understand that yet means so much more than the weight that we give it, right? So often we be really caught up in the fact that something hasn't happened yet, and we look at that yet negatively, which is why we feel upset, which is why we feel worried, which is why we feel anxiety. If we look at that yet positively, then we get excited. It's like it hasn't happened yet. Oh, yet, which means that it will happen. So when you stay with that yet and really recognize that the yet is really the determining feeling in that sentence, in that statement, that's what's going to determine how you end up feeling, depending on how you feel about yet, depending on how much you believe in yourself and your ability, then that's what really matters. But that being said, just a lot of the stuff that he's saying right here just sounds cliche. It's like, just sit back and, meditate, just think about it and it'll happen. I think we so often place little value on the power of positive thinking because it takes longer at least in my life, I can attest to this, that it takes longer for good things to happen. It seems like it, right? It seems like it takes longer for good things to happen than when you're thinking about something bad. It seems like that just happens right away. And I don't think we really recognize it because it's like the bad thing, we may just chalk it up to the fact of like, man, this is already about to happen. Like I already thought this was about to happen. So it happened. Ooh, I knew it was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen because I thought it was about to happen. So it happened. We don't look at the fact that maybe that's why it happened, because you thought it was about to happen. You even knew it was about to happen. You expected it. So it happened. You don't look at that expectation and the fact that you were thinking and all that may be a result of why the bad thing happened. Whereas like when something positive happens, we just get, I'm trying to speak in like a general sense. When something positive happens, we get excited about it happening, but we don't even think about maybe that the positive thing that happened was as a result of us also thinking positively about it. But maybe it's because the moment you think about that positive thing to when you see the result of it, it's so far in between that you like, you done probably been through so much before that positive thing happened that you like, man, did thinking have anything to do with it in the first place? At least that's how I be feeling sometimes.
When you've reached your goal. Ours has been called the phenobarbital age, the age of ulcers and nervous breakdowns and tranquilizers. At a time when medical research has raised to a new plateau of good health and longevity, far too many of us worry ourselves into an early grave, trying to cope with things in our own little personal ways, without learning a few great laws that will take care of everything for us. These things we bring on ourselves through our habitual way of thinking. Every one of us is the sum total of his own thoughts. He is where he is, because that's exactly where he really wants to be, whether he'll admit that or not. Each of us must live off the fruit of his thoughts in the future, because what you think today and tomorrow, next month and next year, will mold your life and determine your future. You're guided by your mind. I remember one time I was driving through eastern Arizona, and I saw one of those giant earth-moving machines roaring along the road at about 35 miles an hour with what looked like 30 tons of dirt in it. A tremendous, incredible machine. And there was a little man perched way up on top with the wheel in his hands guiding it. And as I drove along, I was struck by the similarity of that machine to the human mind. Just suppose you're sitting at the controls of such a vast source of energy. Are you going to sit back and fold your arms and let it run itself into a ditch? Or are you going to keep both hands firmly on the wheel and control and direct this power to a specific, worthwhile purpose? It's up to you. You're in the driver's seat. You see, the very law that gives us success is a two-edged sword. We must control our thinking. The same rule that can lead a man to a life of success, wealth, happiness, and all the things he ever dreamed of for himself and his family. That very same law can lead him into the gutter. It's all in how he uses it, for good or for bad.
That's so powerful, and it's kind of scary because it's like we don't look at that as a thing, right? And this is like, I'm excited to be like doing this with y'all because like that's the way like my thought process is developed and like over the years is because I've recognized this, right? Like when it comes to how we think, it can lead us, like he said, to our riches, but it also could lead us to our demise, how we think, just our thought patterns. But we got to take a step back and realize what causes thought patterns, right? Your thought patterns are heavily influenced by how you grew up, your environment that you currently live in and that you were raised in. And ultimately, it's really staple, like the staple of your personality is determined by like when you're 7 years old, 7 to 8 years old. From 0 to 7 to 8, that's pretty much who you're going to be. Your thought process, your values and all that has already been developed and installed in you. And now the only thing that's going to do is one thing, more traits are going to grow bigger than others, but now you think different ways because of how you were raised. That being said, though, it's why somebody who's raised in a different environment, or a family that has a generation of wealth, or whatever these things may be, it's why all these outside circumstances are really so important. It's why it's really important in my eyes for people to even be bringing this kind of information to you watching this, is because when you knowing this, the sooner you can get this information, the sooner you can apply it, right? I'm a big believer in that. This is like why my hang up with school is, right? Because we learn a whole bunch of stuff, but you wait so long to apply it. And a lot of the things that you learn in school, you never really apply. So when it comes to stuff like thinking and the power of metaphysics and just being able to be in tune with who you are internally, on how who you are internally affects your life externally, and the events that it brings towards your life, the sooner that you're able to get this information, share this information, and really just, indulge yourself in this kind of information, the better off you'll be within your own life, because you'll recognize that the power that you have. I feel like just within a lot of spaces, and we're about to get into Dr. Umar right after this, but I feel like in a lot of spaces, Black community, and not just like the Black community, because I'm one of the people, like I think it's a thin line. Like, I don't like when people just bashing on the Black community and just like acting like, what I'm saying, we're so horrible as a people. But the fact of the matter remains is, like, in the Black community, we come from a different lineage, right? Our lineage 400, not even 400, but 100 years ago, we were being separated just by the color of our skin, being, picked on and being, belittled and demised, or all these bad things just by the color of our skin. So our thought process is going to be different than somebody who's wasn't treated that way just by the color of their skin, who was given more opportunities 50, 60, 70 years ago, whereas a lot of the Black community, our opportunities really developed within the last 60 years. And when you really sit back and really sit on it, because a lot of the things that we did develop, it got destroyed. So when you think about why maybe some groups of people are better off than others, you have to take into account the power of the mind and why our mind thinks this way. What does our lineage entail? Not just, how you were raised, but go back to what you're installed in, right? It's like a kid that's grown up in a war environment. That kid can't process what they're growing up in, but the fact that it still remains that they were exposed to it. We were exposed to different things. So that being said, I think this is a great way to finish this off and jump right into our next topic. Let's get into it.
This is the strangest secret in the world.
Never give up on a dream just because of the time it will take to accomplish it. The time will pass anyway. Bro, that's so real. Like I said, I've been on my journey since 19 years old. I, dropped out of college, quit playing college football like 18, 19. And football is my whole life. But that being said, the biggest thing that I'm grateful for and thankful for is that, for one, I started with the creative side of things, the time that I did, but also the fact that I've understood throughout my life that I'm going to accomplish something when I put my mind to it. And you don't have to hold me accountable. I'll hold myself accountable. Because when you think of it like that, you realize that time is always now. So yeah, it might not come when you think it will come. Like even with me, like to be with monetization, when I got monetized, like it might not happen when I thought it was going to happen, but it happened. And when it happened, the time was always now. So if I had stopped, then it would have never happened. So it's like, just keep going, because it's going to happen. It's not a question of if it will happen. It will happen. The time will pass. And when it happens, it's not a matter of when, because when it happens, it'll be right now when it happens. It won't be, you won't be like, man, maybe you will. I have actually. But the point is, when it happens, man, keep going, because it's going to happen now. And when it was going to be like, dang, that's a breeze. That's what I feel. And that's what I've been exposed to. All right, bro, let's get back to